This video is going to be about setting up a book, a paperback that has pictures with no bleed. I just finished publishing a brainstorming workbook that was 8.5 by 11 inches, and it had text and photographs and graphics. So now that I have been through the process, I decided to make this video, and hopefully I can save you some research time and also be able to set things up so that you don't have to retrace your steps or mess anything up like I did. So this is going to be about 13 tips, and I'm going to take them one at a time. And this is really speaking to someone who is planning to do a workbook and wants to set it up for success right from the beginning. So tip number one is you're going to need to know what trim size you will be using. For example, I knew before I started mine that it was going to be 8.5 inches by 11 inches. So you will also need to know what trim size you are going to be using. And I am going to have the link to this exact page, which is from the KDP help site. And it goes into all of the trim size. There's a few videos here in case you want to watch them. So that's the first tip, is you need to pick your trim size. The second tip is that you will want to download a template right from KDP. And I will also have this particular link so you can go right here and choose which template you want to use. Now I am in the actual book that was published. And the third tip is that the layout of your book will depend upon how you set up your page margins. Now, some books you may want to be more spatial, like a children's book, for example. But I wrote this brainstorming stories workbook, so I wanted my margins tighter. I used tighter margins, and I will show you them now. So you click on layout and then margins, custom margins. And as you can see, I chose pretty much the tightest margins that you can have. Okay, and my gutter was 0.13, but I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, and so that will determine the size of the layout of your book. Now, the fourth tip is that you need to know how much space to choose for your gutter. I'm going to have this link down below the video as well. Right here, your gutter is going to be determined by the page count. So you're going to come in here and choose your inside gutter margins. And also, this is divided into no bleed and with bleed. This video is on no bleed. I'm planning a bleed video next, but this one is for no bleed. That means everything is going to be inside your page margins. Now, the fifth tip is about embedding the fonts and choosing not to shrink the photos. Now, here is a link, I'll put this one below also, on how to embed fonts. And that's what I'm going to show you in a minute. So let's go to the document. So I'm going to click over here to File and go down to Options and click on Save. Okay. Now, according to that video I just showed you, you're only going to check the top box. But I'm telling you right now that even though you're going to be doing it right, when you upload your final document to KDP, it's going to say something like this. Your fonts are not properly embedded in the document, but we can fix it for you. Okay. So if you see that message, don't scramble around thinking I better fix my fonts, because that happens all the time. Okay. And I have checked my fonts and they're perfectly fine. Okay. So that's number one. Then the second thing we're going to do is go to the Advanced tab, and you're going to scroll down here until it says image size and quality. And you want to check the box that says do not compress images in file. And make sure your PPI is high. I have 220. Most of my pictures are in black and white. That's big enough. So I'm going to leave it on that. All right. And then you click OK, and that will make the changes in your document. The sixth tip is when you come into your document, before you begin, the first thing you're going to want to do is put on your show hide button like this. And that will show you all of the spaces, the line spaces that you are putting in. Okay. And it's also going to show you a little bit more detail on your page breaks. And the second part of the sixth tip is to make sure that you put on your page numbers right from the get-go. Now, the reason I tell you this is because I didn't put my page numbers on until the end of my project. And because it needed just a tiny little bit more space to put the numbers in, it threw off a lot of my pictures. Not all of them, but a lot of them. So the next thing you want to do is insert your page number. And for anybody that doesn't know how to do that, you go to Insert, over here, page number, and then you have to tell it where to put it, which is, I like mine on the bottom of the page, and I would select number 2, but there's already page numbers on this document, but you're going to choose one of these, and that will put your page numbers in. Now, don't worry about the page numbers until you are like finished with your project, okay? Because right now you're just putting them in to make sure that you have the proper amount of space in light of the fact that you're going to be working with pictures. Okay, so the next tip is tip number 7, and this is a workflow tip. Okay, so let's say the next thing I want to do is add a picture that I want to fill the whole page, at least from left to right. So instead of just adding the picture on the first line, I always put in 3 line breaks like this. And then I click on the second one, and then right here I'm going to paste in the picture for this demonstration. Okay. And what that does is it gives me a space here in case I need to add a page break. And it also gives me an extra space here in case I want to start like a few extra words before the picture. In the end of the project, you can take out all of these extra spaces. But if you just paste the picture in place without those extra spaces, in order for you to put a space before or put a space after, it's like a game of tug and war with Microsoft Word. And I don't even know how to tell you to do it. You're just going to have to tug at it and tug at it until you can finally get the picture there. So by placing the picture with the empty space ahead of it and the empty space behind it, you always have a space that you can add a page break if you need to. And on top of the picture, you also have a space in case you want to add more text or you want to add a title. So that is just a workflow tip that I'm giving you for that one. Now, tip number 8 is that somewhere along the line, I read that all pictures in a book have to be inserted using the insert menu. And that's how I used to do it. But in this book and in past books, I have used both the insert as well as the copy and paste. Okay. And some of these pictures I pasted right after I made them in GIMP photo editing program. Okay. And they all came out perfect in the workbook. So you can use either or. Okay, and the 9th tip is about the pictures also. Each picture or graphic will require you to make at least 2 choices. Okay, and the first one is going to be wrapping the text or not wrapping the text. So first of all, we're going to be using the picture format tab. But in order to see the picture format tab, you have to click on the picture and then it will appear. So now that I have selected the picture, I'm going to come up to the picture format, and the first choice I'm going to make is whether to wrap the text or not wrap the text. Wrap the text means that you want the picture to be on either the right or the left, and you want the text to wrap itself around the picture. If you want that choice, you're going to click on square. Okay, and that will give you a nice wrap, and it will give you a nice little margin around the picture. But if like this picture, you don't want it to wrap around text, you're going to choose top and bottom. And this way, it's going to prevent anything from wrapping around it, even if you change things up above or below. So the second choice that you're going to make is to come over here to the alignment, and you're going to choose center. Okay, and that's going to center the page, center the graphic in the middle of the page. Now, if you look closely here, it doesn't look exactly aligned center. And that's because behind the scenes, Microsoft Word is allowing space for the gutter. So this is exactly in the center of the page. Now, the 10th tip is going to be how to arrange two pictures that you might want to be side by side. I have found that the easiest way to do this is to put it in a table with no border, and then center the table and center each of the pictures. So let me demonstrate how that's going to be done. So I'll come down here, give myself a couple of spaces here, and then I'm going to insert table, and I want one row with two columns. So in the first row, I'm going to, let me copy, paste. Let me just copy, paste. Okay, so now both of the pictures are in the table. So the first thing we have to do is deal with the table. So I'm going to come over here and click on this table icon over here, and that selects the whole table. And then what we're going to do is go up to Table Design on the tab here and choose No Borders, because you don't want the borders to show. You're just using it for alignment purposes. Okay. And then the second thing that you want to do is click on Table Layout, and you're going to choose Align Top Center. And what this is going to do is center the table. Okay. Then the next thing you're going to do is click out of there and then click on the picture. Now, both of these pictures picked up the center setting from where I copied it from. But let's say this was on the left. Actually, I'm glad this happened here. When you click on the picture, you're going to need to go to the picture format. And before you're able to even choose an alignment, it sort of is set up so you have to choose the wrap first. So the first thing I want to do is choose top and bottom, so there's no wrapping, and then it opens the alignments, and then I can choose align center. And you would do the same thing here. You want to choose top and bottom and align center. And this way you have both pictures aligned center in a table that is not going to show the border. And this way they're aligned perfectly, and they're going to travel together in the document. Now, the 11th tip is about color. Now, most of my graphics, I used black and white, but this graphic I had used once before. It was for my website, and I used red in it. But I knew that if I used this picture in the workbook, the red would be interpreted as either dark gray or black. And that's what happened. And that's what I wanted. So I just wanted to let you know that unless you choose to publish a book in color, which is a whole different animal, that all of your graphics and pictures are going to print in black and white. Now, the 12th tip is about the table of contents. So my table of contents in my book, I used heading ones for these top level, the top tier, and then heading two for the next like subtitle or subsection in the book. So that's just a tip you should know right from the beginning is use your heading one, heading two, and if you're going to have different sections, if you're writing a book that's a bit more complex than this, then you will be using heading three, heading four down the road. I think it ends at heading six. And then when you run the table of contents, it's going to automatically set it up in this fashion. Okay, and now we're going to talk about the last tip, which is tip number 13, and that's going to be about odd pages and even pages. Now, in a book, a paperback or a hardcover, the odd pages are on the right-hand side and the even pages are on the left-hand side. So most chapters in a novel, you want to start on the right-hand side, so they always begin on an odd number. But with the workbook that I just did, it was slightly different than a novel because some of the pages just blended into whichever page they were supposed to be. And I could just use a common generic page break, but some of the pages I had to be careful with. And I'm just going to show you a few examples of those and how to do an odd page break and an even page break. So here is the first example. This is the title page, okay? And at the end of the title page, I used an section break to an even page, and the way that you get those is you go to layout, break, and instead of just choosing next page or a new page, you're going to come down here and choose even page. And what you're telling Microsoft Word is that the next page, I want to start on an even page. Okay. And what that means is that this copyright page is going to go on the back of the title page. Okay. I don't want this to be a featured page, in other words. All right. And then the next page on the right-hand side, which would be a feature page, would be the second title page. Okay. And then the page behind that one is going to be the other books by page. Okay. And here is another example where I had to choose a section break to make sure the next page began on an even page. And that's because these two pages are workbook pages, page 1 and page 2. And what I wanted was for the pages to be side by side when the person using the workbook has the workbook open. They can see both pages of the same workbook. In order to get that to happen, I had to start on an even page. So after this paragraph, I just chose section break, even page. And as you can see, instead of going to 21, it goes down to 22. And so that's how I set it up. So at the end of your project, after you're done proofreading and everything is set to go, that's when you're going to go through and do all of your page breaks, the ones that you need to be on which side of the book. And then the last tip is that once you save the book, you want to save a second copy as a PDF. And when you look at the PDF, that will show you that will show you the missing pages. In other words, when you look at this in Microsoft Word, it goes from page 20 to page 22. And you can't really see an empty page. But when you look at it in a PDF, it will show you an empty page. And that's what you want. So then that's the way that you can check to make sure that you have the empty pages where you want them. So that ends this video. That's my last tip on creating a workbook with pictures. I hope you learned something. If you did, I hope you'll give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me. And I'm going to leave you with a panel of my new workbook that will be available on March 25th is the day that it's going to publish. And I will see you in the next video.